Welcome. We are live. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. All right, it's Friday night. Time for the Law of One. But before we get started on that, I'm going to make an announcement that is kind of important for those of you who are paying attention in the world. The announcement is that about a week ago now, just about 7 days ago, the world coalition that it has taken years to get set up worldwide, COVID helped that and enabled that very quickly. In the last 3 years, the World Coalition announced their independence for the first time from the rich elite cabal, whatever you want to call that. You've heard them being called the Illuminati, the Skull and Bones, the Bilderbergers, and the deep state, and all of the the rich elites, the powers that should not be, who have been trying to control this planet and been acting as if they own it. Well, the people that were tired of that rule by fear and aggression ended up joining this coalition that was being put together by myself and many other millions of people around the world. But I assisted in many ways behind the scenes in that, along with millions of other people that are volunteers worldwide to set up this coalition that started with like 5 lawyers and 6 doctors and a bunch of us that were working in different governmental systems around the world and ties to governmental systems worldwide. And now that coalition has announced their independence. So I wanted to point that out for those of you who know about that, that happened. And because of that, a coalition that I'm a part of, and that many of you in my audience are a part of, some of you know you're a part of it, some don't know that yet, are a part of, there's a more coalitions. There is the off-world coalition called the Coalition of Venus, or the Supreme Council of Venus. They're called different things. People know them by different names. The Galactic Alliance, that's another term. But there's a difference in those bodies that are 3D and 4D. The Galactic Alliance is more of a militant wing of the Council of Venus. There's several operating systems operating from around the universe that have come together in that council. One of those is a council that I belong to, in that a few of the people that listen to this when I'm on also are a part of, and that is the Orion. It's one of the councils that came from Orion, and everybody goes, wait a minute, Ra is talking about people from Orion, so they must be all evil. Well, Ra is also from Orion. Good people and bad people are everywhere in the universe at this level. And good people have came here. So the Orion Coalition of Light is a coalition of light bringers who have come here and have been on this planet as wanderers for hundreds of thousands of years to help out in what's going on here. And I have a video that we put together introducing that. And I'm going to be talking through it. The reason I'm going to be talking through it is that those of you who are watching this on the MP4 file, you'll be able to see the visuals and read for yourself what's on the screen. But those of you who are listening on the MP3 file, you'll just hear chanting and you'll hear tones, especially vibrations, one of which is going to be 528 hertz, which is the heart chakra activation, love activation. But there's all of the spectrum of 9 vibrations that you will hear, and those of you who are keen with music, you'll be able to detect them, including the Om sound, but it's done differently than the Om. You're going to hear them go, hey, 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 and then they're going to hit that Om sound, and you're going to hear that recurring over and over in the background. All of that was done on purpose for activations. I will read on the screen for those of you who are watching. You're going to go, why is he reading what I'm seeing? I'm reading it for the benefit of those people around the world that will be tuning in on the MP3 podcast, which will be on whatever place that you guys listen to podcasts all around the world. So I'll read to you what you will not be seeing, and you'll be just hearing music for 2.5 minutes. So I'll read you what it says during that video. And I've released this video to the world, and I'm releasing it now for the first time on this show. And when we do our Earth Day, which is April 20th, 22nd, I will again show the video, because it's time to introduce to the world. Some of you know, some of you have heard of it. Some of you, especially mediums, have talked to people from the Orion Coalition of Light. And some of you have astral traveled and been taken before the Orion Coalition of Light. And that is becoming more prevalent and aware, and people are mentioning it on their own. And there's a reason for it, because of these activations and because of this coalition, world coalition, declaring its independence, standing on its own, being powerful enough and no longer afraid of this cabal that is trying to run this planet. In defiance of that, they have now realized that they are equal to, if not stronger than, and they have large coalitions. And one of those large coalitions I happen to be a part of. So I'm going to play the video that we put together to introduce to the world. And you won't be able to see the visuals. That's too bad. For those of you who are listening on the MP3, you might want to go to my page or one of my on the platforms of TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and watch my reels and shorts where I have that video listed, so you can see the visuals that go along with what you're missing here. So you'll hear the music and I'll read you what it says, but you won't see the visuals that go along with it that are just as powerful as the music and the words that you're seeing. So it won't do it justice, but those of you who are watching this, you'll get to see it. Many of you that are in the audience now, hi Cassie, hi Denise, hi Pamela, that I see that are here, you guys have already seen it. So for you guys, it'll be a rerun. But for the rest of the world, I'm introducing it for the first time. So let me play that. Let me get back over here on the screen so I can play that for you. And we're going to play that. Like I said, I'll turn my microphone back on and I will be reading the words to you that you see on the screen. Okay. So when it first starts, the first thing you're going to see on the screen is the Orion Coalition of Light. And then we'll continue from there. We have walked among your people for generations. We came here to help guide those in need. We have been mostly hidden from the world until now. We are souls from many places, vibrations. We are here to serve all with one soul. We are here across many vibrations. Many have come in this 3D form. To help you expand your consciousness. Your heart chakra is creation. Creation. Start thinking in terms of creation. Your energy field is the same as everything in the universe. Of your light is the center of the universe. It is one in the same energy. As within, so without. As below, so above. We are the Orion Coalition of Light. We are here to guide you with love. To remind the world what love is. And that is the video that we created to introduce ourselves officially to the now newly independent coalition on world, officially to the world, in association with the coalition of Venus, the Council of Venus, the whatever you have heard them called, the Galactic Alliance, the Galactic Council. They are all the same under many different names that you've heard around the world in different fringe places and populations. So we're officially announcing that coalition exists and has been here and in support of the coalition of Earth that is now declared themselves free and no longer under the reign of that cabal, deep state, whatever you've heard them be called. Okay. So let's continue with the Law of One. And we're going to start the session 16 this week. Share this out. Like I said before, we're going to share. And we're going to start with session 16, which is very long. There's 60 some odd questions in that session. And for those of you who tuned in, why was he saying what I saw on the screen? I was reading that for the people who are listening around the world in the MP3 podcast where they didn't see the visuals, and also telling them they should go and watch that video because it's actually very important. And it comes across in every vibration on purpose, all of the 9 major vibrations, and for all the chakras to activate those. So hopefully when you listen to it or when you watch it, it does move you in some way. You don't just watch it and go, these guys are crazy, I'm out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the Law of One, session 16, which is very long, like 60 questions, like I said. So we're not going to get through it all this week. I have a hard time getting through 30 questions in one session, right? Because we're going to be talking about chakras and a lot of stuff, and we'll get into that as we go. Okay, so let me go ahead and click over here and get this started. Make sure it's working here properly. So if you guys can hear it, let me know. If you can't hear it, this is too big here. Hold on, I got to fix that. If you can't hear it, let me know. I'll turn my sound up, but I believe it's not loud enough to where you guys can hear it, okay?
January 31st, 1981. 16.0 Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite creator. We communicate now. 16.1 Questioner. As I ask question.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause for a second and mute my microphone. My mother has wandered into the kitchen, and she's sitting in the kitchen right now, so I have to escort her back to the living room so she'll sit down. Thank you, Penny, for telling me it sounds good. So there'll be dead air for a second while I convince my mother to please go into the other room and sit down, because she's now handing me mail and trying to talk to me. So let me go and move my mother back into the other room. I'll be right back. I'll just let it play, and I'll listen, and I'll pick up if I need to, okay? That way you guys have that. But you'll probably hear me talking to my mom in the meantime.
There will
actually be easier if I mute my microphone, because then she won't be disturbed by that. So hold on. I will be back in just a moment. Anybody who tunes in and goes, what's going on? Why is it total silence? Let them know, guys, in the chat. It's because I'm my mother's caregiver. She has Alzheimer's, and I'm moving her back into the living room. I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Only took me a second. Okay, I apologize for anybody who popped in and went, why is there dead air? Right? Okay, so that was the video. Peter, welcome. I don't know if you were here. I played video. You should go back and watch that. Since you've seen the video. Brianna, welcome. So I'm going to go ahead and continue now that I know Penny told me you guys can hear. I'm going to go ahead with the raw and get the Law of One, session 16 starting. This was January 31st, 1981. So we're on question 1, session 16, question 1.
Fortunately, be inaudible. I think the direction I wish to go investigating the Law of One. However, I have ideas in mind of some questions inaudible. They may be stupid questions, I don't know, but inaudible. Inaudible, trying to construct a complete, unbiased book about the Law of One. One which
see, and when it says inaudible, these are actual transcripts, guys. Just so you know, this is the book before it became the book. Okay. This is literally the book before the book. So this is the transcript of the cassette tapes of the actual session, raw, before they edited things and printed it for the book. That's why it says inaudible here and inaudible there, and you'll hear that periodically. And that's literally because this is literally the cassette tapes from the recording of the session put to a transcript before they made it a book. Okay.
itself takes into account the law of one. I hope that you inaudible ridiculous. I would like to ask, considering the free will distortion of the law of one, how can the guardians quarantine the earth? Is this quarantine within the free will distortion? Ra, I am Ra. The guardians guard the free will distortion of the mind/body/spirit complexes of third density on this planetary sphere. The events which require activation of quarantine were interfering with the free will distortion of mind/body/spirit complexes. 16.2 Questioner, I may be wrong, but it seems to me that it would be the free will of, say the Orion group, to interfere. How is this balanced against the other concept you just gave? Ra, I am Ra. The balancing is from dimension to dimension. The attempts of the so-called crusaders to interfere with free will are acceptable upon the dimension of their understanding. However, the mind/body/spirit complexes of this dimension you call third form a dimension of free will which is not able to, shall we say, recognize in full, the distortions towards manipulation. Thus, in order to balance the dimensional variances in vibration, a quarantine was set up, this being a balancing situation whereby the free will of the Orion group is not stopped but given a challenge. Meanwhile, the third density group is not hindered from free choice. 16.3 Questioner.
See, now, if you're paying attention, one of the reasons why me playing that video in the beginning and talking about what's going on it currently is that explanation right there about that free will isn't infringed, but the parameters of what is considered free will changes by dimension or by solar system. Okay, so what we have set up here on Earth in the way what we believe in free will is literally the culmination of all of us souls that are on this planet, currently good and bad, coming to a 50-50 agreement about free will and how that works and what can and cannot be done and what is and is not allowed. That doesn't necessarily mean that is universal wide. All of the laws of physics, everything is inherent in some ways to the entire universe by the vibrational patterns of the nine major arcana, the nine major vibrations, the nine major chakras, and depending and determining the amount of chakras that you're aware of is directly related to the spirituality of the individual and the collective of every individual planet in third dimension. Okay. For instance, when Pythagoras first came up with the theorem, they had 369. In fact, originally they had 36, and then they had 369, knowing that there was 9, but they didn't have them all identified. They only had 6 of the vibrations identified across the spectrum, and then 3 more vibrations were actually found within the middle portions of that, turning it into 9 total, 12 total actually. But if you look in time, in math, they knew 36 and then they knew 369. So if you go back far enough, which we would be talking hundreds of thousands of years, they understood 3 and the power of 3 and the triad and Mother Maiden Crone, the triple horn of Odin, the triple crescent moon of the mother. These religions that are very old understood these equations slightly. And as we were further away from the light and less spiritual, even for those who were spiritual minded, then the people started to see more of this equation. And as a whole society, that was still a low number because our Earth was way away from. If you go back 2,000 years when the Christ was here, or prior to that, when Ra came and talked to Akhenaten, you'll find that, or Amun Ra, right, Amun Re, you'll find that they didn't know all of the information because of their spirituality at the time. So if you look back now, just now, in our history that you can remember if you're old enough, but you can read the history and kind of look backwards. If you look backwards in time to the 30s, 1930s, 1940s, so almost 100 years ago now, people did not know how many chakras we had, and they thought we had 7. And then they come forward in time, and they still claim the 7, but now they're starting to see 2 more above the body, and they're not really, mostly officially, not realizing that if there's 2 more above the body, there has to be 2 more below the body as well, because as within, so without. And all of that has been corrupted, and that's why I rightly said it, as within, so without, as below, so above, because that's the actual way that it was said. And if you look at even the Christian Bible in Matthew, that was written almost 2,000 years ago, 9,900 years ago, it was written. Even in that, they had said, as below, so above, as within, so without. And they knew it then, but it's been corrupted since then. So our understanding, our understanding is growing. Our knowledge of the universe is growing as we are writing ourselves and getting closer to the light. We're now starting to realize, first we thought we were only 2,000 years old, the whole human race. But when I was born in the 60s, they thought maybe 3,500 years ago was the oldest when the human race was created. And then they went to 10,000 and 12,000 years ago. Officially right now, they won't really acknowledge, even though they found bodies and mummies that they have dated to 50 and 100,000 years ago, they still won't acknowledge openly that the human race has been on the planet as long as they found a human, right? They're still clinging to the 12,000 year thing. And because what they're doing is they're basing it on the deluge, and they don't really know what happened before that, but they actually do. Those people, the powers that should not be, actually do know it, but they don't want anybody to know about it. I was just talking to Cassie before going live about that very thing. So that as your spiritual mindset starts arising, you're going to unlock these other chakras and the knowledge that they're already there. The rainbow that we see in the 3D is 9 units, and all of the entire universe is based on those basic 9. And this is what Ra's going to be talking about right here, about that. But it is expanded out from that. But in this 3D, the ones that you really need to know about are the colors in the rainbow. Those are also vibrations. Those are sound. Those are gases. Those are everything in the spectrum. A year ago or 2 years ago now, it was either a year ago on Earth Day or 2 years ago on Earth Day, depending on what reality you're in. I did an entire hour where I literally was showing you visuals and how all the vibrations of everything, gases, light waves, sound waves, everything that you can imagine, how they're just actually stacked on top of one another, and that they're so close to one another that people don't realize that because they think of spectrum, they think liquid and gas are so different. They think that sound is completely different than a liquid or than a gas, that they are nowhere near each other. And the truth is they are partners in a grand scheme, and their vibration is just slightly off. It's like, the molecules of water being H2O, that's hydrogen and 2 oxygen. And if you remove 1 oxygen, it changes that into a completely different product, right? Or if you take the hydrogen out of it, it becomes oxygen, O2. Do you see? So 1 molecule changes air to water. 1 molecule, that's it. When you attach 1 molecule to air, it becomes water. Well, the same thing happens with gas, and the same thing happens with sound. But most people aren't ready to make that leap yet, because that leads to what is gravity. And the air that we breathe is literally 1 molecule off from water. So the birds that fly through the air move through the air the exact way that fish move through water. Okay. The exact way. But in your mind's eye of reality, you look at things and say, that's completely different, but it's not for the people in the water swimming, and not for the people in the air swimming. It's the same thing. Okay. So, but it is slightly different, right? It's a different density. So the reason I say that is that within this density, third dimension, there are several densities within this dimension, and you have to wrap your brain around the idea that water, or the four things, earth, fire, air, and water, are in fact more brothers and cousins than you would think. They are literally just a few molecules off of each other. And that's what it's very important to know. Okay, so let's continue with Ra.
Could these windows that occur let the Orion group come?
But now he's talking militarily again and politically in the 3D. His obsession with that, Dawn's obsession with that, at some points shows where his spiritual mindset was. He's still trying to prove UFOs in the old style of doing things, which is okay. That we'll get into that too, right? Let's continue.
Through once in a while. Does this have anything to do with this free will distortion? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 16.4 Questioner, could you tell me how that works? Ra, I am Ra. The closest analogy would be a random number generator within certain limits. 16.5 Question.
What he's referring to here is that quarantine that has been set up. Okay. The quarantine that has been set up is not completely infallible. Okay. So there is a possibility for people to get through, to literally get boots on the ground, even though there is a quarantine. Because of free will, there has to be a chance. So it's probably about, I don't know if he explains the percentage, but it's probably a 98% chance against anybody just penetrating and coming to Earth. But there's a 2% chance in that, if he's explaining that if you can create an algorithm, right? But back then he wouldn't know what an algorithm is because they weren't created yet in 1981. We didn't even have personal computers until 1993. Actually, before that, in the 80s, I had one. Before that, because my best friend's father worked at AT&T. So when the Commodore 64 came out to the world, that was in 1990 something, 1 or 2. He had it in 1986 or 85, right? So the companies around the world and the governments around the world had computers, like we know them today. Only it was DOS, and I learned on DOS how to write code, and then morphed from there into this. Everything's plug and play apps now it makes everything so easy that a monkey could make a computer program now. Before, you had to write it out in code, and I learned how to do that working with DOS before Windows, because Windows was 94. Or Windows was 94, and then 97 was the upgrade, Windows 97, and then you went from that, and then they just started calling it Windows 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and now we have 10, 11, and I think they're up to 12 almost, right? So let's continue. So he's talking in the sense of being able to break through into the Earth through the, if you have a random code generator, you might be able to determine when you could have a window.
What is the source of this random number generator? Is it created by the Guardians to balance their guarding? Or is it a source other than the Guardians? Ra, I am Ra. All sources are one. However, we understand your query. The window phenomenon.
Yeah, Peter, I'm going to put that up on the screen so you guys can see what Peter's talking about here, and I'll read it to you. Peter said the Gibbs factor is the fastest car on the planet and on Earth, and it's run by water, but they won't release it to the public. The guy who invented it mysteriously died. He was found in the Thames River with stone shoes. So they literally gave him, wrapped, concreted his feet and tossed him in the water, right? So that's the truth, and that there's engines out there. And I know another guy who created one that's a perpetual engine that once you start it, it's free and it just keeps running forever. And he won't start it because the powers that should not be actually are scanning the world for that signature, because it has a distinct signature. And if they find it, they go and take it from the person who created it and whack the guy who created it. Not a joke. Not a joke at all. This has been going on for a long time. Let's continue here.
Is another self-phenomenon from the Guardians. It operates from the dimensions beyond space/time in what you may call the area of intelligent energy. Like your cycles, such balancing, such rhythms are as a clock striking. In the case of the windows, no entities have the clock. Therefore, it seems random. It is not random in the dimension which produces this balance. That is why we stated the analogy was within certain limits. 16.6 Questioner. Then this window balancing prevents the Guardians from reducing their positive polarization by totally eliminating the Orion contact through shielding. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is partially correct. In effect, the balancing allows an equal amount of positive and negative influx, this balanced by the mind/body/spirit distortions of the social complex. Thus in your particular planetary sphere, less negative, as you would call it, information or stimulus is necessary than positive due to the somewhat negative orientation of your social complex distortion. 16.7 Questioner. In this way, total free will is balanced so that the individual may have an equal opportunity to choose service to others or service to self. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. 16.8 Questioner. This is a profound revelation, I believe, in the law of free will. Thank you. This is a minor question further to make an example of this principle, but if the Confederation landed on Earth, they would be taken as gods, breaking the law of free will and thus reducing their polarization towards service to all. I assume that the same thing would happen if the Orion group landed. How would this affect their polarization towards service to self if they were able to land and became known as gods? Ra. I am Ra. In the event of mass landing of the Orion group, the effect of polarization would be strongly towards an increase in the service to self, precisely the opposite of the former opportunity which you mentioned. 16.9 Questioner.
See, so that's actually important to know. The governmental system of this planet would have you believe that aliens could invade at any moment of our planet. And they've been preaching that for generations in every way possible. They also, I know this to be an actual fact, they also have a false flag narrative set up that a last resort to take control of the planet, they have a mock fake alien invasion set up. And the reason for that is to say, oh no, big bad aliens are here. And then they're going to roll out that they're in charge, you see. They're going to start then tell you all of what they have going on. All of the technology that is real that they didn't tell anybody about. And they're going to say, it's a good thing we have these secret spaceships and abilities able to defend ourselves against these alien invaders. And the truth is the alien invaders are drones, robots, and people in costumes, or actual aliens, Greys and Draconians who actually live in this planet. Okay. And because that's how they can already be here, because they already are. And they have the right to be here because they were already here. The Draconians were here before humans were. Okay, they considered us a pest. We lived on the surface, and they lived inside the planet, and they didn't like us, and they just used us to. Some of them ate us for food. So they would hunt us for a while to keep our population down and eat us just like they would any other animal. I know some of you might think I'm crazy right now and not want to listen to any more of what I'm saying, but I'm telling you the true history of what really is going on in the world. So then they would show them, oh, look on TV, look, they're not just drones. There's people in them, and they're aliens. I've already been told by the one of the Galactic Alliances, the Secret Space Program, the SSP, that they're planning to roll out the what we call the Nordics, the tall, thin, blonde-haired, blue-eyed alien race, which primarily the question was asked to, say, Corey Good, for one, about them rolling out information now. They're starting to allow information out to the public about UFOs, about aliens. And he said what I've been saying, and that all of us are saying from the beginning, that all of that is controlled narrative, and that they're only going to release what they want, because the only people who can come here in 3D are the people that are already here. And the only ones who will come here in 3D to try and affect us in any way are going to be nefarious alien beings or military or systems that are here as invaders of some sort. And they're the only ones that will come here because everyone else who is in service to others has a prime directive of non-interference of free will. Okay, so the only people who usurp that free will and try to do anything other than allowing free will are the people who are trying to be in control. And this is what Ra is warning about, that they have usurped the control of the matrix by getting you to give up your free will without knowing that you're doing it, by gaslighting you. They've been doing it for generations. They control the narrative. They control history. They control physics. They control your math. If you've watched the documentary Above Majestic, whether you think I'm crazy or not, right? You can think I'm crazy and think that I'm just a Kool-Aid drinker on that one side. If that's what you feel that you need to do that. Change the channel and go somewhere else that you have somebody telling you something that makes you feel good. And you won't have to be afraid. That's mostly why someone would think I'm crazy, is out of fear of what I'm saying could be true. Okay. And then they run away. Their ego says, don't believe them. Right. So the only people that are going to come here are going to be people that want something from the human race. Not I come here to help you to do things, because if they did, they would have to come through, or they would come through the way that wanderers come through. They would come here literally giving up their own life where they were, and the possibility of being stuck with everybody else and then not having any power, not having any control, not having any energy, and just being one of the people, and then waking up to that knowledge and then having to live in this third dimensional world. Nobody that is in service to self wants to do that. It is very, very rare that you see that happen. So the people that are on this earth that are in fact evil, they are literally just people that are in this predicament like everyone else, who have chosen to be evil. The boots on the ground that everybody keeps trying to tell you happened. This is why I'm telling you this, because you hear people saying that, we lost the first temporal war. Well, we kind of did, and I'm not going to get into the temporal war thing, but that was done by trickery. In exactly what they did was they said, "Oh, big bad aliens are coming to get you, and we can help you. Just let us in." And you have to welcome the vampire in because of free will. And they opened the door and let the vampire come in. And when they got here, then it was too late. They had took control of the planet. Okay. And even the people that were here on the planet didn't want them to be in control, because that meant now we don't own the planet, because now they're claiming they do. So they wanted them to leave as well, but they still want to keep control. So they had a dilemma at the time. How do we get rid of these people and keep control at the same time? So that had to happen. So they had to work together to make that happen, but they wanted it to look like it didn't happen. So I know all of this sounds crazy to some of you out there, okay? And the reason this is what Ra is talking about right here is that free will and the coalitions that are here that are not trying to interfere. Some of us came down here to help, and some of them will call it interference. Well, they're just jealous because we gave up our lives and the possibility that we would get stuck here forever and never remember who we were, sacrificing everything that we are to come here. Every wanderer who has done that at the onset, knowing full well, when I go down to this earth, I may never wake up, and I may be stuck there for generations, recycling over and over. And even if I do wake up, I may be murdered and killed, so that I can't give any information to the people and help them. So knowing that, we came here for the long term. This is the Druidic ideology, but it's not just that. Most of the religions have that ideology of, killing someone with 1,000 slashes, or, long-term nudging something off course to fix it. And what we've done is just exactly that. We've helped the people here right the ship, right? And start moving everybody back towards the light, because it was done in the opposite, to move everybody away from the light for generations, many generations. And because of free will, we've come here and just educated, and that's what we're doing now. We're announcing it a little bit more, where this is not something that has happened to the masses very often on this planet, because of where they were at the time. They would immediately assume we're gods, so we couldn't do that. That's why we didn't. And that's why only now are those of us who are aware of who we are starting to announce who we are to the world. And you're hearing that, I'm sure, not just on this channel, but you're hearing it in many places. And we take a lot of flack because we become targets. Cassie and I were just talking about that. The moment you say, hi, I'm here to help, and I've come from somewhere else, then all of a sudden everybody attacks you and tries to make everybody believe that you're secretly trying to take over the world. Because that's what they're doing. They're secretly trying to take over the world. Okay. So you'll never hear me in any way try to bark orders or give you any information or tell you something that is not in accordance with your free will. And in fact, I always encourage everybody not to believe a word I say. And I say this on my show all the time. Don't believe a word I've said. Go and look it all up for yourself and make up your own mind. And if you think that I'm crazy, stop listening to me. And if you think that I'm not crazy, continue listening to me. But it's completely up to you to do. If I wanted to get popular, I wouldn't be talking about this product. I wouldn't be talking about spirituality, and I wouldn't be talking about the law of one. I wouldn't be talking about everything that's going on this planet. I would be talking about TNA. I'd be, talking about cars or sports, or a buddy of mine, Dino. He does. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. I love him to death, and I love what he's doing. He used to talk about aliens, and now he does a show. He literally was on live last night. I don't know how often he's on, but he's on a lot. And he'll be on right now, either right now or at 5 o'clock. He'll be on. And he literally plays old radio shows that were literally on the radio. And he plays them on air on a podcast and talks to the crowd. And everybody in the crowd talks about what's going on and acts like they're in the show. It's almost like a Rocky Horror Picture Show combined with an old radio show instead of the visuals that you saw if you ever went to Rocky Horror Picture Show. Because you see it on TV, you just see them acting it out. But if you go to a movie theater and watch it, it's actors on stage acting out what you're seeing on the big screen. And now they're doing that with the podcast, where everybody in the crowd is saying lines and answering and saying things and talking like the characters in the episode and making comments about what they said to one another. It's pretty, oh my God. I was amazed. I had such a blast last night just being there, because they all sound like Bugs Bunny, Oh, brother, there goes me bread and butter, Hey, Doc, listen, you're doing it all wrong, Doc. And that's how they talked back then, right? Even in the movies and on the radio shows. So it's a fun. If you've ever seen an old movie in black and white, or heard one of those old radio shows, like people know Orson Welles' Invasion, from Mars that they played in 1938. It's still legendary. It's fun. And now we're doing it with podcasts, and it's fun. So I'm not going to say it's not. I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with it. It's fun. And he'll be on right now. He was on last night. I think it was last night or the night before. I was on with him going, oh my God, Dino, I love you, bro. This is so much fun. He was like, Leo, what's up, dude? And he's the one that got me into broadcasting almost 10 years ago now. He interviewed me for my book, Orion Rising, or I think it was before that when I did my prepping book. It was one of those two of the 3 books that I already have out. And he got me talking there, and then off camera said, you are a great speaker. Why don't you do this? And I'm like, I'm kind of thinking about it. And then he's the one that got me doing it. And here I am. And he taught me everything that I know and then some. To be able to broadcast. And I, at one point, we had 1,500 people live every second on my shows. And then I started doing spirituality. And of course, it drops down to 5 or 6 or 3 or 4. Only people who are interested, the people that are awake enough, are actually stay. Other people come and go. And that's okay. I'm all right with that, because literally you have to have it in your mindset. If I make a difference to one person, then I've done my job. And that's literally what Raw said. If one person is affected by this, then we've done our job. And because that one person will then spread that to other people. And so if I have 2, 3, 4, 5 people, I'm doing my job. And if you return more than once, I'm doing my job. And if you don't, but you're still affected. If you last more than 5 minutes listening to me, you're affected by my words. And that's going to change your life forever. That's what happens to all of us. We all affect each other. I'm a drop in your pond, and you're a drop in my pond. We will infect each other with our knowledge, which will change the way we actually perceive reality for the rest of our lives. So if you tune in for more than 3 minutes, I thank you for that. If you don't, and you leave in 30 seconds, it's still 30 seconds. That's why on apps, they give you 15-second, 5-second commercials now, because they realize they can still get to you in your head in 5 seconds. So, and of course, because of the short attention span, people don't like to stay for any length of time anywhere, because TikTok and all the other places are conditioning you to not. Because when you stay longer than 15 seconds or 30 seconds, you actually start thinking about what the people are talking about, and they don't want you to do that. They want you to be gone and off to another video, and they want it to be 15 seconds, maybe 30 seconds long, and they want you gone off to another video, shopping around so they can control the algorithm. And this is what's going on in the courts of the United States right now, and some countries have already banned TikTok, but you don't know that. If you're here in the United States, you think TikTok's worldwide. It is not. It is already banned by almost 8 countries on the planet, and they're not small countries. And all of the European countries are discussing it, just like the American government is, of banning it, because they understand what it's for, what they're doing with it, right? So let's continue, right? Yeah, old radio shows. I love that. Denise said old radio shows, right? Old radio show, the show, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men. Laugh out loud. My grandparents listened to this. Yeah, right? Let's continue here.
If the Orion group was able to land, would this increase their polarization? What I am trying to get at is it better for them to work behind the scenes and get recruits, shall we say, from our planet, the person on our planet going towards service to self strictly on his own using his free will, or is it just as good for the Orion group to land upon our planet and demonstrate remarkable powers and get people like that? Ra, I am Ra. The first instance is, in the long run, shall we put it, more salubrious for the Orion group in that it does not infringe upon the law of one by landing and, thus, does its work through those of this planet. In the second circumstance, a mass landing would create a loss of polarization due to the infringement upon the free will of the planet. However, it would be a gamble. If the planet then were conquered and became part of the empire, the free will would then be re-established. This is restrained in action due to the desire of the Orion group to progress towards the one creator. This desire to progress inhibits the group from breaking the law of confusion. 16 point.
So you see, no matter what they do, this is why this is important. Everything that I just said about this false flag narrative can't happen. Okay. If in fact, this is what they've tried to do with COVID and other things, and what they're trying to do now with this, supposedly there's a fungus among us, and they're trying to scare you that way. And then, of course, with this banking system thing, what they're trying to do is utilize these things to create mass fear so they can take control of the population. But the problem that evil people have is they don't want to acknowledge the laws that govern, because they defy some sort of God that is a Holy Spirit. So because of that, they can't say it doesn't exist, but they have to say it doesn't exist, even though they know. Because I've always asked this question to people my entire life, and I have yet to have anybody in 3D actually explain it to me. I'll explain it to you after I ask you the question. Why is it that government officials just don't burn and shred all the documents and get rid of all the information, even though people say, oh, they must have shredded all those documents, and then all of a sudden these documents pop up and they're still there? Why is it that those documents are still there? Why is it that I can think of we needed to destroy all of those freaking documents? Every movie on television convinces you, don't even look for the documents, because evil people, the first thing they do is destroy the documents. But then when there's an investigation, the documents are still actually there for people to see. Why is that? Look at the January 6th Commission. They claimed that the entire thing was just a riot, an insurrection, and people were killing. And now the president of the United States the other day said 6 police officers were murdered during that insurrection. 6 police officers did not, in fact, die at all during that time period. No, the only person who died during the insurrection was the woman, the ex-military personnel, who was shot in the throat. And even that is suspect. I've watched the video many times, and I used to proof videos for a living. Okay. And the video is not compelling enough to say, I believe this woman is deceased. especially since she disappeared. No ambulance went to the grounds. No ambulance left the grounds. And they told everybody, leave the family alone. She doesn't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to talk to anybody because of the loss. Yet there was never seen on all the thousands of cameras and cell phones from that day any ambulance taking a dead body out of that place. Just saying. So, but if you guys can find film footage of it, please let me know and I'll put it on the air because I'm still wondering what happened to her. So the people who did die died of a result of other things that happened to them afterwards. Some committed suicide. And why would they do that? Why would they be so? You need to ask yourself these questions. Why is it that some of the police officers who were involved in that day then were so distraught after that? Now it was the most horrifying thing. And I have to kill myself. And now, because of change of hands of who's in charge, you're starting to see other film footage that's boring. And it's just people milling about looking like tourists. In fact, if you weren't told this is January 6th that you're seeing, you would think it could be any other day. Because they're just walking around taking pictures of themselves and everything and literally walking around as if they were tourists, okay? Nobody was raiding the place. Nobody was breaking things. Nobody was burning things. Nobody was knocking things over. That didn't happen. People were running into the offices and taking selfies. Look, I'm in so-and-so's office. Ha, ha, ha. Look, they have papers here and stuff. Ha, ha. All felonies. So those guys, unfortunately, went to jail. But so I'm not trying to say that what happened was right because it wasn't. Let's be serious. That was just horrifying to watch. But why is it that none of the people that have been arrested are any of the people who actually were on camera destroying things, fighting with police, breaking windows, knocking over barricades, attacking the police department? Why are none of those people paraded in front of everybody with the cameras saying, look, here he is hitting a policeman with a hockey stick. Here he is pepper spraying a policeman. Here, this is the guy that was breaking the window. Those are not the people that got arrested. Why is that? You got to ask that question. Okay. And then the videos that are coming out are showing you not only, everybody's saying, well, they're not showing you the bad part. Well, the bad part was already shown by the commission in their 400 episode television movie that was created by a television producer that they showed you everything they could find that was bad. So why would the people now want to show you the same stuff? Again, you can see that already. Okay. So they're showing you the stuff that wasn't played. Not all of it, because there's thousands of hours, none of which has any police officer being killed, any police officer being bloodied and knocked unconscious. And every single room other than bathrooms have cameras in them in the Capitol building, every hallway, everywhere. So if it happened, why didn't they during the commission on the 100 episodes that were on television, why didn't they show those to people? Oh no, we didn't show them because it's part of an ongoing investigation and it's too horrifying to see. But they're trying to convince you that 8 or 6 is what they're up to now, that 6 police officers died that day. But there's no evidence of that. There's no hospital records. There's no ambulance records. There's no police records of calls of people are dying and it's gotten out of control and they're killing people now. None of that. None of that is anywhere except for in their mouths, right? So that in and of itself, this is my point of all of that. That in and of itself has done nothing to change what you think if you're in that religion and consider yourself with a D or an R after your name, or whether you're a progressive with a P after your name or a conservative with a C after your name. It hasn't changed one iota. Why is that? Okay. All of that, some of you are probably lost because I was talking politics because you didn't understand where I was going with that, because here I am talking what you call politics, which I call a religion, and what many people, even in politics, are starting to call a religion. That information is starting to get out to the world where people are starting to refer to business, politics, that practice of the caste system in everything is actually a religion, because it is. Okay. So why is that not changed any one iota when they go and they interview people and ask them, who would you vote for in the next election? It's still the exact same dynamic. This is what Raw is referring to here when Dawn was saying, if they get boots on the ground, And would people think that they were gods and submit to them? And Ra's telling you, no, they can't. Because of the law of free will, if they literally show up and invade, what that will do is change the dynamic, because they're here as an invasion against free will in the third dimension, knowing that they're here as an invading army that is interfering with a free and sovereign world in this galaxy. It will change the dynamic, and some of the people who are in fact in service to others currently will flip sides. And that, you see, is actually what is starting to happen with TikTok and with the teachers' unions. As they've continued to push back for control over children, you see mama bears around the country who consider themselves progressives, liberals, and Democrats all of a sudden saying, are you fucking crazy? No. And what's happening is the balance has shifted from this, because it used to be far right. Okay, when the Bushes were in charge, it was far to the right. When Reagan was in charge, it was far to the right, because they were really far right-leaning presidents, the two Bushes and Reagan. And then when Clinton was here, it was more towards the center. He was just a little bit left of center. And then Barack Obama was a little further left from center, but they were still very close to center, even Barack Obama. Right now, Barack Obama's politics, according to the Democratic Party, has him as a Republican now, as a conservative. That's how far left they went. Literally, Barack Obama came into office right now and won the presidency, they would hate him, because he's not far enough to the left. He's considered right. That's how far they've gone. So as they keep doubling and tripling and quadrupling down to this far left agenda, what's happening is the people, because the majority of the world is in the center. It doesn't matter what people call themselves, Republican, Democrat, whatever you have in your country. The majority, 89% of the population, resides in the center. Slightly to the left or slightly to the right, but in the center, okay? That is where the population resides. And when they pull one way or the other, when everybody was Republican and they pulled everybody to the right, a lot of those people were pulled to the right. And you had these, what are now ultra liberals, who were pulling on people, trying to get people back to the left. Well, once they got momentum, it's like a tug of war. Once they got momentum, they kept running as far left as they could go. And that's what's happened, is the pendulum has swung from that conservative far right side to the progressive far left side. And now it's starting to swing back, because they went so far that they're now starting to sound crazy with some of the things that they're saying. They're actually starting to sound crazy. And they're acting like that all over the world in the things that they're saying and doing. And people are looking at them and going, my God, they're actually insane. Because what's happening is that's the polarization that would happen. And that's why I'm giving you this example. If the invading army showed up, it would be the exact same as the lockdowns in COVID and them trying to take control and justify being in control of the world. And when that happens, immediately you see people running back the other way, away from them as fast as they can, to balance things out, because there is a natural balance that some of us know about. That's the yin and the yang. That's what that means. That's the feng shui. It's what that means, okay? We know this, and it's the laws that govern here. So we know that the pendulum will swing, and it goes back and forth and back and forth, and the parties flip. What the Republicans stand for today is what the Democratic Party in America stood for in the 60s, and vice versa. And then if you go back further, you see it flop again, okay? All the way back to look at the Republicans when Lincoln was the president. They were abolitionists and trying to abolish slavery. Now you have the very people who were fighting for slavery trying to tell you that that the people who want slavery are the ones who freed slaves, but they don't want you to know the history, that they were the ones, in fact, that were the ones that wanted to fight for slavery. They don't want you knowing that. They were the party of slavery. You can look that up in history. I'm not making it up. So things flip-flop and change. Okay. So things flip-flop and change. And what drives that is free will, and is the balance of free will. When you have people that are trying to gain control one way, the population eventually goes the opposite direction. And then if they're trying to gain control in the other way, it'll also do that. So those of us who are in service to the all, we are aware of that, and we count on that. So sometimes people will look at me and say, why aren't you doing anything about somebody who's blatantly trying to control other people? Because everyone has to learn. So if I tell them, they're not going to believe me. It's like now, some of you, what I'm saying now, you're not going to believe me. And you're going to go, he's full of crap. And I'm okay with that because you have free will to do that. And I encourage that. But the way the laws work, and this is what Raw's analogy is, if they literally got boots on the ground and said, we're an invading army, and even if, and why I'm saying this is if the world governments, the cabal, whatever you want to call it, deep state, whatever you call it, wherever you are in your country, around the world, if they in fact unleashed onto the world a mock alien invasion, they would have to quickly squelch it, because what would happen is the people of Earth would polarize against the invaders. So they have to quickly go, quick look, invaders. Oh, wait, we'll save you. They would have to do that. That's called the Hegelian dialectic. They would literally have to give you the cause that would scare you. But before you start rationally thinking again and moving away from total control, they have to take control of you. Okay. And even when they do that, people will revolt. They know that in the beginning, this is a dynamic, okay, that after the Hegelian dialectic, that there's a dynamic that probably somewhere around 60% of the population will kowtow at all times. They'll just put up with it. And then the other population of that, say 40% that doesn't, of that 40%, not very many will speak up. Okay. The actual amount of people that will actually do something when someone invades is 10%. 10% of the population will actually do something. To what extent gets lower and lower and lower, down to between 3 and 5% will actually form a resistance. So they need to find that 10%, and especially the 3 to 5% before they do it and arrest you. And that's the only way they can take control. But what happens is, as soon as that happens, this is what Raw is explaining to the dynamic. Say right now the governmental system decides I'm one of those people, and most of you in the crowd are those people, and they round us up and put us in prison. Because we're gone off the grid, what will happen is the other people will take our place. They've learned this from attacking the Taliban and these other terrorist organizations. Okay, why do I bring that up? Why am I going down all of this road? Because those of us who were setting up these coalitions on this planet, who started out in Secret Service to other governmental systems and working with these people behind the scenes, are also perfectly aware of that. If you look back in time, you see these people like the Temple Knights, when on Friday the 13th, October, Friday the 13th in the year 1207, when the Pope and the King of France decided that the Templar Knights were far too strong, had far too much money, far too much land, far too much military, and that they both owed them fortunes apiece, they decided to, in fact, arrest them all and take their everything from them. A small group of people, about 5%, and the Grand Master was one of them, sacrificed themselves to occupy everyone that was trying to take control, while everybody else escaped, which they already had planned, and disappeared onto the planet to never be seen again. The military disappeared, all of their soldiers disappeared, all of their wealth disappeared, all of their ships, their horses, their weapons, everything, their armor, all of it disappeared. The entire organization disappeared off the face of the earth. And they had about 180 men that they had at their disposal that they arrested, and then they tortured them and did everything they could do to get information from them, and none of them cracked. None of them gave the information. And guess what happened? Those people got away, and then they formed 18 other countries that are currently still around to this day. And the monetary system that you currently use worldwide, the banking system, the savings, your credit cards, all of that was invented by the Temple Knights. Okay. So they, in fact, were not able to, even though they had this master plan to attack them all at once at 7 a.m. Zulu time. And then it changed to change the course of history, and it did, but they went underground and they didn't get them. It changed the dynamic. The same thing happened with the frequencies on this planet. In the 1930s, the Rockefellers paid money to do an investigation, And in that investigation, they realized that if they changed the broadcasting frequency to a certain frequency, I put these videos up in the class chat and one other chat, the Returning to the Old Ways, for people to watch these videos yesterday on purpose, because I knew that Raw was going to be talking about this right here. And I wanted a little bit of homework for people to see. So they realized that if everybody tuned to a certain frequency, that frequency would actually keep people in a lower vibration. And they tune all instruments to this day into that frequency, and all of the radio, all of the frequencies on television, all the broadcasting frequencies are on that frequency. And Leonard Horowitz talked about that in a video that I posted, that those of you who are listening to a radio while you're driving, not a satellite radio, because that's just wherever you are, you get the signal, but an actual radio where you're tuned into a tower, and you're listening to the radio frequency. As you get further away from the tower, it starts to get staticky, and it starts to bother you. The static starts bothering you, and you'll either change the station and try and tune in another station, but if you really, really like the song, you'll continue listening to it with the static, and eventually that static drives you mad, drives you crazy, and you get angry, and you turn off the radio or you turn the channel, and because you're angry because of the static. You tell yourself it's because of the static, and I can't hear the song, but the truth is it is because of the static and the sound that you're now hearing, which is masked behind the song when you can hear the song clear. Okay. So the song, this is when they've also discovered that if you take the vibrations of two different vibrations, and you know that the channel is one channel and one and is another channel, a different frequency, and you play one in one ear and one in the other ear, or two at the same time, it creates a third tone that blends the two of those together and creates a new tone. And why am I telling you this? Because I did it to you in that video that I played for you at the beginning, and they do this to you all the time. So the frequency that they have taken and hit you with, they call the devil's frequency. And if you hear it for an extended period of time, it'll make you sick. You'll throw up, you'll get a migraine, you might even get diarrhea. Not a joke, okay? That's the actual truth. They know about this. They knew about it in 1938. So they broadcast on that frequency, but they don't combine it to make you sick because you'll change the channel. But what they do is they give you something like a music on a radio that makes you feel good, and then they give you this one that makes you feel bad. You listen to the song, and it kind of augments it, and what it does is you don't realize that it's lowering your vibration and pulling you away from ascension, okay? Because you're too busy dancing to the tune and liking the song. And once everything went digital and went to television and went to computers, they also had to do the same thing, because now it's no longer on the airwaves. So they have it there too. Okay. So when you're watching videos on TikTok and you're watching everything, it's being played in the background, whether you know it or not. And that's part of the algorithm that they use. And the thing that makes you feel good, that you go and watch, the comedy, the whatever it is, the people crashing and hurting themselves, or jokes or funny things or cats and dogs, makes you feel good. But what you don't realize is happening is that the tone that is in the background is actually lowering your vibration. But you don't know that. But you get hooked on the other feel good part, right? That was what they were trying to show you with the Chronicles of Riddick, where they were indoctrinating people to their religion through pain. And they would hang them up and have these probes stabbing them in the neck, on both sides of their neck. And then they had probes on your mind. They didn't show you in the movie, but you could see the diodes there. But if you read the book, then you actually understood what was happening. And they were giving you pleasure with pain to associate the pleasure and the pain together as one thing, showing that some pain is worth it because you're gaining pleasure. They do that in the way they're teaching you, so that they lower your vibration. And in doing so, they're building you up at the same time and telling you that it's okay, making you feel good about it. And that's what they've done. And the reason they do that is, right? Yeah, Cassie says, no wonder I don't watch TikTok or television. And people who stay away from those platforms and they don't watch television at all, and then all of a sudden they feel better about themselves. This is why we tell you, go out into nature and be out there in the world and be involved in nature, because the Schumann resonance, the harmonic resonance of the planet itself and nature itself is actually something that reaffirms calmness in the human psyche and the human soul. Okay, that's the charm of making. We talked about that was that yesterday, last night. I was talking about that with Pamela and Cassie. Why? Because I knew I was going to be talking about it today, and I said that. You guys tune in tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow. Why? Because Raw is going to be talking about this. So Raw's explaining how the natural balance finds its equilibrium no matter what is done, because it is laws that cannot be usurped whether they want to do it or not. So in the very beginning, it's going to look like that. If there is an invasion, it's going to look horrifying. And then as the invasion sets in and the reality of it sets in, then people are going to rise up against the invaders. And you're going to have people that didn't work together before, that hated each other, that are going to come together. Their plan is to scare everybody, Hegelian dialectics, you can look that up, scare everybody and then give them the solution of one world government before anyone notices, and then have control, and then arrest all the people that might stand up and fight back as quickly as they can. It's always short-lived, because even if they do that, in every country that has done that, has taken control of their population, eventually they've been overthrown by their population anyways. Every time, 100% of every single time on this planet in history. It's another reason why they don't want you to know history, because they don't want you to be aware of that. Okay. And this is what Ra's referring to here. So when I tell people, don't worry about it, it's going to be okay, some people go, no, it's not. The world's going to hell in a handbasket and we're all going to die. And I'm like, no, actually we're not. It just seems like that right now. And it's not going to be that way. Okay. It won't continue to go that way. And it looks like my mother's trying to go outside. I'm going to have to get over here in a second and find out what she's doing, because it looks like she's heading for the door. She is. So I'm going to let this play and I'm going to go and get my mother. Okay.
10 questioner. You mentioned the word empire in relation to the Orion group. I have thought for some time that the movie Star Wars was somehow an allegory, in part, for what is actually happening. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct in the same way that a simple children's story is an allegory for physical/philosophical/social complex distortion/understanding. 16.11 questioner. Is there a harvest of entities oriented towards service to self like there is a harvest here of entities oriented towards service to others? Ra. I am Ra. There is one harvest. Those able to enter fourth density through vibrational complex levels may choose the manner of their further seeking of the one creator. 16.12 questioner. Then as we enter the fourth density there will be a split, shall we say, and part of the individuals who go into the fourth density will go to planets or places where there is service to others, and the other part will go into places where there is service to self. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. 16.13 questioner. Well, the Confederation established its core.
Yeah, sorry guys. So, yeah, my mother actually grabbed her shoes and decided to try and walk out the front door. So I'm going to have to cut it early tonight and get off of here, because I'm not sure what's going on with her. But she was actually trying to escape just now in her pajamas, wearing sandals, grabbing her tennis shoes and going out the front door. So I have her sitting down, but I'm going to need to not be on here being distracted by this for tonight. So it looks like the universe is saying that we're going to end it early, and we'll continue this conversation next Friday. So you guys have a good weekend. I apologize for having to cut it short this weekend. We'll pick it back up where we were next week and continue on from there. Mom's obviously having a bad day. So I need to go and take care of Mom. I love you guys. Have a great night. I'll see you guys next week. Share this out. Those of you out there in the world who hear this and didn't get to see the visuals, please go to any of my platforms, TikTok, Instagram, any of the places, right? I know Vanessa said, oh boy, yeah, right? So go to Facebook, go to YouTube. That video that I played where I was reading the words at the very beginning, if you didn't get to see it on the MP4 file, please go back and watch that, or go to another platform and watch it. I have it up there for you about the Orion Coalition of Light and the introduction to the world now that the World Coalition has declared their freedom and independence on this planet for the first time. So now we're letting you guys know that we do exist. And some of you already knew we were here anyways, because some of you channeled it. I've had a couple of psychics mention it to me in the last few months. And I was surprised that they knew about that, and come to find out they knew about it for a while. So some people, you guys have already been introduced to the Orion Coalition. of light, and you've heard those words before. Some of you have not, and it's brand new to you. You'll be hearing more from that coalition worldwide as other people will then start doing what I'm doing and telling you that they're part of that coalition as they're here. All right, guys, have a great night. I love you guys. And like I said, I'll see you next week.